The next morning, the wrecked car was found on the side of the road, but there was no sign of the couple. The police searched the area, but they found nothing. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. The story of the missing couple spread quickly, and soon the whole town was talking about it. Some said the cursed car had returned, that the evil spirit had come back to finish what it had started. The police launched an investigation, but they were met with dead ends at every turn. The only evidence they had was the wrecked car and the eerie, unexplained tire tracks leading away from the scene. As the days went on, more people began to disappear. Each time, the pattern was the same: a pair of headlights in the night, a car chase, and then nothing. The town was plunged into fear once again, and the memories of that fateful night years ago came rushing back. The curse had returned, and this time, it was worse than ever. But the people of Maplewood were not about to let history repeat itself. They remembered Mrs. Turner's sacrifice, and they knew that they had to find a way to stop the car once and for all. A group of townspeople banded together, led by the sheriff, a no-nonsense man named Frank. They armed themselves with whatever they could find: guns, knives, even makeshift weapons, and prepared to hunt the car down. "We're not going to let that thing terrorize our town again," Frank said, his voice steely with determination. "We're going to find it, and we're going to end this." The group split up and scoured the town, searching for any sign of the cursed car. They patrolled the streets at night, their eyes scanning the darkness for those telltale headlights. But the car was clever. It seemed to know they were hunting it, and it stayed hidden, waiting for the right moment to strike. One night, as the group was patrolling the outskirts of town, they heard the low, menacing growl of the car's engine. The sound sent chills down their spines, but they steeled themselves, ready for whatever was to come. The car appeared out of the darkness, its headlights blazing. It sped towards them, its engine roaring like a wild animal. The group scattered, trying to avoid its path. Frank raised his shotgun and fired, but the bullets bounced off the car's hood as if it were made of steel. The car swerved, narrowly missing him, and then turned sharply, coming around for another pass. "It's no use," someone shouted. "We can't hurt it." But Frank refused to give up. He reloaded his shotgun and took aim again, this time aiming for the tires. He fired, and the car skidded, its tires screeching as it struggled to maintain control. For a moment, it seemed like they might have a chance. The car slowed, its engine sputtering. But then, with a deafening roar, it surged forward, more ferocious than ever. The car plowed through the group, knocking them aside like rag dolls. Frank was thrown to the ground, his shotgun clattering away. He looked up, dazed, just in time to see the car barreling towards him. He scrambled to his feet and ran, but the car was faster. It chased him through the streets, its headlights shining brightly in the night. Frank turned down an alley, hoping to lose it, but the car followed, its tires screeching as it rounded the corner. It was relentless, unstoppable. As Frank reached the end of the alley, he realized there was nowhere left to run. He turned to face the car, his heart pounding in his chest. The car roared towards him, its engine deafening. Frank closed his eyes, bracing for the impact, but just as the car was about to hit him, it swerved, crashing into the wall beside him. The impact was so powerful that the wall crumbled, bricks and debris raining down on the car. Frank opened his eyes, stunned. The car was still, its engine silent. It was as if the curse had been broken, but Frank knew better. He knew that this was only the beginning. As Frank and the remaining townspeople gathered around the wrecked car, they noticed something strange. The car was still intact, despite the crash, and there was something inside it, a small, glowing object on the dashboard. Frank reached inside, carefully picking up the object. It was an old, tarnished key with strange symbols etched into the metal. "What is this?" Frank muttered, turning the key over in his hands. One of the older townspeople, a man named Earl, stepped forward. "I've seen something like that before," he said. "It's a key to an old, hidden vault beneath the town. My grandfather used to talk about it, said it was sealed away because of something unnatural." "Where is this vault?" Frank asked. Earl pointed towards the center of town. "Under the old church, but it was sealed off years ago. No one's been down there in decades." Frank felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that whatever was in that vault was the key to stopping the car once and for all. Frank and a few brave townspeople made their way to the old church, the key clutched tightly in Frank's hand. The church was abandoned, its windows boarded up and its doors creaking on rusty hinges. They found the entrance to the vault hidden beneath the floorboards in the basement. The key fit perfectly into the ancient lock, and with a heavy groan, the door swung open, revealing a dark, winding staircase that led deep into the earth. The air was cold and damp as they descended, their flashlights casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. The further they went, the more the walls seemed to close in, as if the very earth was trying to swallow them whole. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a large, circular chamber. In the center of the chamber was a stone altar, and on the altar was an old, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed with age. Frank approached the altar, his heart pounding in his chest. He opened the book, and as he did, a cold wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing their flashlights. In the darkness, Frank felt a presence, something ancient and malevolent, something that had been waiting for this moment. He began to read the words in the book, his voice trembling. The language was old, unfamiliar, but the meaning was clear. The book contained a ritual, a way to banish the evil spirit that had possessed the car, but the ritual required a sacrifice. Frank's heart sank as he read the final words of the ritual. He knew what had to be done, but he didn't want to believe it. "What's wrong?" Earl asked, sensing Frank's hesitation. Frank looked up, his face pale. "The ritual ... It needs a sacrifice, a life for a life." The townspeople exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the situation settling over them like a dark cloud. "We can't ask anyone to do that," one of them said. "It's too much. But if we don't, the car will keep killing." Frank replied, his voice heavy with resignation. "This is the only way to stop it." There was a long, tense silence as they all grappled with the gravity of the decision. Finally, Frank took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I'll do it," he said, his voice firm. "I'll be the sacrifice." The others protested, but Frank was resolute. He knew that this was his responsibility, that he was the only one who could do it. With a heavy heart, Frank began the ritual, chanting the ancient words from the book. The chamber grew colder, the air thick with the presence of the evil spirit. As he reached the final verse, Frank felt a sharp pain in his chest. He staggered, clutching the altar for support. The others watched in horror as Frank's life slowly ebbed away, his body growing weaker with each word. But he kept going, determined to see it through. He knew that this was the only way to save the town, to rid Maplewood of the curse once and for all. With his final breath, Frank completed the ritual, and a blinding light filled the chamber. The ground shook, and the walls trembled as the evil spirit was banished, its hold on the car broken. Frank collapsed to the ground, his eyes closing as the light faded. Frank's body lay still on the cold stone floor, the book clutched in his lifeless hand. The townspeople stood in stunned silence, their hearts heavy with grief and gratitude. The car was gone, its curse lifted, but the cost had been great. They carried Frank's body back to the surface, the old church bell tolling mournfully as they emerged from the vault. The town of Maplewood had been saved, but it would never be the same. Frank was laid to rest in the town cemetery, his grave marked by a simple stone that bore his name and the words, "He gave his life to save us all." In the weeks that followed, life in Maplewood slowly returned to normal. The memory of the cursed car began to fade, and the townspeople tried to move on. But the scars of that night lingered, a reminder of the sacrifice that had been made. The old church was renovated and reopened, its doors once again welcoming the faithful. The vault beneath it was sealed forever, the key buried alongside Frank, never to be used again. As time went on, the story of the cursed car became a legend, passed down through generations. But the people of Maplewood never forgot the man who had given everything to save them. And in the quiet moments, when the wind whispered through the trees and the night was still, they could almost hear the sound of a car engine, distant and fading, as if the spirit of the car was finally at rest. A year had passed since the night Frank had sacrificed himself to save the town. The people of Maplewood gathered to remember him, holding a candlelight vigil in the town square. The atmosphere was somber, but filled with a sense of peace. The curse had been lifted, and the town had been given a second chance. But as the vigil ended and the townspeople began to disperse, something strange happened. The wind picked up, and the air grew colder, sending shivers down their spines. The sound of an engine echoed through the streets, faint but unmistakable. The townspeople froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. They turned towards the sound, and there, at the edge of the square, they saw the cursed car, its headlights flickering in the darkness. But this time, It wasn't threatening. It was just there, watching, as if it were saying goodbye. The car's engine revved one last time, and then it slowly faded away, disappearing into the night. The townspeople stood in silence, their candles flickering in the breeze. They knew that the curse was truly gone, and that Frank's sacrifice had not been in vain. Years passed, and the story of the cursed car became a distant memory, a ghost story told to children on dark, stormy nights. Maplewood thrived, growing into a bustling town filled with life and laughter. The scars of the past had healed, and the town had finally found peace. But the legacy of that night lived on, a reminder of the darkness that had once threatened to consume them all. And every year, on the anniversary of Frank's sacrifice, the people of Maplewood gathered to remember him, to honor the man who had given everything to save his town. They would light candles in the town square, their faces illuminated by the soft, flickering glow. And as they stood in silence, they would listen, just for a moment, for the sound of an engine in the night. But it never came. The car was